Thank you for being here. We are in Genesis chapter 49. This is 17 years after Jacob has come into the land. He's living in the land of Goshen, and he is now on his deathbed, calls his sons in, and is going to announce to them. One of the things, this is a very unique set of verses. It can be considered a prophecy. There is elements of prophecy within it. But I don't know if you want to push it all the way to the level of a prophecy like, Jeremiah, Isaiah, something, as much as it could also be a father blessing his sons, looking back on life, looking back on his experience with his sons, and talking to them individually about just kind of predicting, this is how you've lived, this is where you're heading, with his own experience and wisdom. So some of it may be more practical than some element of spiritual divine insight, although I think there's spiritual divine insight in this. It may just be Joseph or Jacob talking about where his sons are headed. And also we got to remember he's talking to sons, individual men, and their ages are, I've got a chart here. If you go to page, I guess it's page 10. It's a chart we've seen before, but I updated it for this chapter. Before I had it when they first came into the land, but now this is for chapter 49 at Jacob's death. The birth of the sons and their mothers remains the same, the birth order: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah from Leah. And then there's going to be born Dan and Naphtali from Bilhah, and then Gad and Asher with Zilpah. Then Leah has 9 and 10, Issachar and Zebulun, followed by 11 and 12, Joseph and Benjamin. So that's the birth order. On the left side over there, that birth order also now has the ages. Reuben, the best we can come up with, an intelligent number, Reuben is 67. So Jacob is 147. His oldest son is 67, then Simeon 66, all the way down. You can see that down to Joseph himself is 56, and Benjamin's right around 51. We're pretty sure Joseph is 56 because we're given several dates in Genesis. So that's how old these boys are at their father's death. Now they're going to go through, and this prophecy, there's going to be addressed to each of the sons. It's going to go in this order. He's going to address the sons of Leah first. And it's going to be packaged this way. The sons of Leah are going to be given, 1 through 6 are going to be put in, and then we're going to have the concubine sons, Bilhah and Zilpah, with, we'll just say Bilhah and Zilpah. They're 4 sons, and Bilhah's going to be first with Dan, and then Gad and Asher are going to be mentioned, and then Bilhah's second son, Naphtali, will be placed there. So Zilpah's sons are sandwiched between the listing of Bilhah's 2 sons. And then finally, it's going to be Rachel's 2 sons, Joseph and Benjamin, are going to be number 11 and 12. And that's the way they're going to be listed. The only deviation is that Leah's sons, Issachar and Zebulun, are for some reason flipped around in the order. That's just information. I don't know if that means anything, but they just go right down: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, then Zebulun and Issachar instead of Issachar and Zebulun. And that's the way it's going to be. We do see a list like this again in Moses, and this would be, if we're going to do a study, it would be fun to go through this and then take what Moses says to the same tribes. Now there are groups of people by the time Moses gets to them, and he's going to have a prophecy or directions for each of the tribes. And then Joshua 23, he's going to address them, and then it's during those chapters, it's verses, 14 through 19 or something like that. Joshua divides the land up and tells them where they're going to go. Now this becomes interesting as far as how this matches, this chapter 49. It's different than the rest of the book of Genesis. Now you need the book of Genesis to understand it, because Jacob's going to refer to situations that have happened in the book of Genesis. But this almost seems, you don't have to accept this, but it's something you're going to have to think about. This chapter could almost stand by itself as a document that was predicted, prophesied, said by Jacob, and then was written down as he was saying it or after it got done, and then it was filed somewhere. But then when Moses comes to assemble the book of Genesis, and we've talked about this several times, Moses, I think he's on the mountain with the Lord, and the Lord is giving him word by word dictation the law of Moses, and Moses is writing these things down. God meets Moses at the tent of meeting, and Moses stands and talks to Moses. Moses and the Lord talk face to face, and Moses writes down what the Lord says, just like a secretary. He's writing down with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But those are things, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. It's easy to see Moses writing it down, one, as it's happening, while he's with the children in the wilderness, or while he's in Egypt doing the plagues, or while God is dictating to him on the mountain. He's there. But now what about Genesis? On the mountain, does God say, okay, Moses, let's start with in the beginning? And Moses is chiseling that out or writing it down. That could be. But the way it's assembled, it seems like Moses inherited, collected, or had available ancient manuscripts written by people under the inspiration of God, and that's written there, bottom of page 1. You've got Genesis chapter 2 through 4, the generations of the heavens and the earth. That's the generation or the creation account written by maybe Adam. This is the genealogies of Adam. This was the Toledot of Adam, meaning this was the written document of Adam. And well, then that's point B, the generations. And the word generations is the word Toledot. It means the inscriptions, the generations, the inscribing of this information. And you could have, and then Noah. I mean, Adam didn't write about the flood. Noah, I don't think, wrote about creation. But I do think if you read Noah's writings and read about the flood, it's written like a journal. On this day, on this month, I mean, this is what happened. This is what the Lord said. Well, who's going to write that down? Moses, in 1400 BC, 1446 BC, or Noah as it's happening. And then he's got Noah's documents. And these were just collected all the way through. And then you've got genealogies. You've got the genealogy of Ishmael. Has nothing to do with Israel. You've got the generations, the chapter of Esau. All the chiefs and all the tribes of Esau. What do we care? Why is that? Well, that was available. They kept a record of that. And so right along with that, here we come to chapter 48. We turn to chapter 50. And now it says, then Jacob called his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you what shall happen to you in the days to come. Now, I have every thought that this was written down there at that moment, or shortly thereafter, that it's a product of that time period when Jacob is dying. I've got it dated here, 1859. It's not a biblical date, that's an estimation. But this would be written down in 1859. And available in their archives that the Israel and his sons have is those other documents that Abraham inherited and had, and is going to go on down and be given to Moses when they come out of Egypt, and Moses is going to compile them into the book of Genesis. Now, some things in here. Point 5, I wrote, this chapter is different from the rest of the book of Genesis, which means it may be a document written alone and collected. This would make this chapter very authentic and original. And if it's written in 1859, and it shows up in here, there's going to be some terms that are hard to translate. I'm not going to get into the translation, but if you get into some exegetical commentaries, I mean, there are pages of what to do with this word and which way to direct it, and some of the metaphors. I mean, we've got a nice, clean English Standard. I'm using the English Standard Translation here, but we're going to read like, oh, that's what it says. But when you get behind the curtain and look, it's like, well, we could have gone this way or this way, and we had to make a choice. We had to make this a complete sentence. We couldn't just draw a line, go, and question mark, question. We don't know what this is saying. So we had to make an intelligent, scholarly, I don't want to say guess, but to keep it there, we have to translate it. But the Jews had trouble translating certain parts. You can see that in the Greek, the Masoretic text, and the Septuagint. And scholars throughout the years, because the further we get away, even the Jews and the Septuagint were centuries away from, a couple of millenniums away from when this was written. And they're trying to translate it, which is not a problem. It gives it authenticity, meaning it means this was written at this time in 1859, and they understood the metaphors, they understood the vocabulary. But by the time Moses comes and leads them into the wilderness, it's the language is developing, the metaphors have changed. I mean, just think how hard it is. I can't even talk to, every once in a while I'll talk to my grandkids sometimes, but they're polite and they kind of stay on boomer wave of conversations. But I've talked to younger people, if it be in their teens or their 20s, and it's like, that's not how we talked in the 70s. And when my grandpa from the 1800s, he was born in the 1800s, he heard me talk in 1970s, he was like, what do you say? I mean, as you know, language changes and terms and metaphors change. And you can see that in this document that we're looking at. I'm looking at, top of page 2.6. The Hebrew language in this chapter is ancient, and this is apparent even to us by here's 4 points: the ambiguity of some of the terms, the obscurity of some of the word plays, the uncertainty of the meaning of some of the metaphors. Also, by the time of Joshua or the judges or the monarchy. Now remember, this is being written, around 1859. Again, that's not a biblical date, but that's about when Joseph or Jacob dies. But then you're going to have in Deuteronomy, you're going to have 1446. You're going to have the book of Deuteronomy. Joshua is going to be writing after 1406. So we'll just say 1400s. And then you're going to have David and the time of the kings. And now you're down under 1000 BC. And if how the tribes are acting during the time of the kings, you've got tribes, you've got a nation called Judah, and that lasts for David and Solomon. And then after Solomon, it splits into Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel. There's nothing in this chapter about there being a nation and the nation splitting. In Joshua, the land is divided up, and they go take the possession of the land. And some of the land divisions where they end up, it doesn't make sense. It's like, it doesn't fit exactly with what was written back here. And the same thing, what Moses is saying in Deuteronomy 33, there's a flow to it, but this stands alone and is not influenced by the days of Moses. It's not influenced by what actually happened in the days of Joshua and the judges, and it's not influenced by the monarchy. It's standing alone right here in 1859 BC. And what I want to do, I want to read through this and have it be clear, a prophecy. Look, it happened just exactly the way it is, but it's like, it doesn't happen. And is this even prophecy? Or is this Joseph or Jacob just determining who's going to get what share of the inheritance? And he's the first three, Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. No, and no, you're disinherited. The rulership is going to go to 4. Judah. Oh, that's the kingly tribe. Why is Judah the kingly tribe? Well, that's where Jesus comes from. No, it's the kingly tribe because Reuben defiled Jacob's bed, and Simeon and Levi embarrassed him and destroyed a city and were violent. They used the sign of the covenant, circumcision, to destroy the Gentiles. It's like, no. So Judah, you'll become the royal tribe. You'll be the king of these people. It's like, oh, because that's where the Messiah is coming from? We're not even talking about the Messiah yet. We're talking about Jacob saying no to his first 3 sons. So, I mean, so that there's this ideal of prophecy, what's happening in the future, but yet a lot of it is just right here. What's Joseph or Jacob thinking as he's doing these things? On page 2, I'll just show you there, point 7 on page 2, Joshua, that's Joshua 14:19. We won't do that tonight. That's 5 chapters. We'll save that for some Sunday morning and read through it. No. That's the land is being divided. That's fun because that's where the land is divided. Joshua, yeah, what a great book, the book of Joshua. Well, you've got 5 chapters of him just giving them boundaries from this city to this well to this spring of water or to this field to this mountain range. That's your land. And so you can see that right there, and that's assembled by Lot. You know, they're in a sense rolling the Urim and the Thummim for where that property lines are going to go. The priests are involved with that. What other things we've got here? I'm looking at the first page, second page. I'm trying to decide what I want to do, how I want to introduce this. And I think what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to read chapter 49, verses 1 through 27, so you can just hear it. And then I'm going to try to bring some insight into it. So here is Jacob, and Jacob is dying. In fact, if you want to look in chapter 27, look in verse 28. After he finishes verse 27, verse 28 says, "All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them as he blessed them, blessing each with the blessing suitable to him." This is what he thought. "Then he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field at Machpelah, to the east of Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite to possess as a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is in it were bought from the Hittites," meaning we own this. "When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew up his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people." So that's how this chapter ends. So these words are coming right before he says, "Don't forget to take me back to my burial place." So here we go, chapter 49, verse 1. I'll read through it, and you'll see the names of the sons pop up. Joseph has the longest. Judah has the second longest. But these first three, Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, you should hear in there, no, no, no. I will tell you this also. If a father has 5 sons, and his oldest son gets the double portion, he takes his property and divides it into 6 shares, and 4 sons each get 1 share, and then that oldest son gets 2 of the 6 shares. And so what you see happening here is Joseph has 12 sons. Judah's going to get the royalty. He's going to become the leader. Joseph is going to get the double portion. And that's why we saw last time we were here that number of sons goes from Joseph, goes down to 11. Joseph is split into 2 parts. Ephraim and Manasseh, Jacob says, are mine. They're my sons. And so now instead of having 12 sons, he takes Joseph, splits him into 2. Now he's got 13 sons. And you're going to see when the land gets divided, all the sons are going to get their portion, but Joseph is going to get nothing, except he's going to get Ephraim and Manasseh. So Joseph is going to get the double portion in here. And again, Joseph has the longest. Judah has the second longest. Some of them are nothing more than 6 words. Gad, 6 words. And of those 6 words, 4 of them are word plays on the name Gad. Okay, here we go. Chapter 49, verse 1. "Then Jacob called his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you what shall happen to you in the days to come. Assemble and listen, O sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel your father." Here it goes. "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the firstfruits of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. Unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it. He went up to my couch." That's how he ends the blessing. So all of a sudden, this is not a blessing. He's getting cursed. "Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. Let my soul come not into their counsel. O my glory, be not joined to their company. For in their anger they killed men, and in their willfulness they hamstrung oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel." And he's going to. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter. When you get into this, they're not going to get any land. They're just going to get cities in other people's lands. So there's the first 3 are cursed. So this is, he's blessing his sons. Well, the first 3 don't think so. "Judah, your brother shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you, because he's going to become the leader. Judah, and these are some great lines. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as a lioness who dares rouse him. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. And peoples would be the Goy, the Gentiles, the nations. So he's going from being the leader of Judah to being the leader of Israel to being the leader of the nations. Binding his foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he has washed his garments in wine and his vestures in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine and his teeth whiter than milk. Okay, we'll talk about all that, because that's all that some of that can be explained what that means. Zebulun shall dwell at the shore of the sea. He shall become a haven for ships, and his border shall be at Sidon. That'd be Phoenicia. Issachar is a strong donkey, crouching between the sheepfolds. He saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant. So he bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant at forced labor. Dan shall judge his people, as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a viper by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that the rider falls backwards. Now Jacob prays right here. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. Very interesting. I mean, that right there after Dan, he prays. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. Raiders shall raid Gad, but he shall raid at their heels. Now that's 6 words in the Hebrew. 4 of them are word plays on the word Gad. Asher's food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal delicacies. Naphtali is a doe let loose that bears beautiful fawns. And they're struggling to translate that. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, and harassed him severely. Yet his bow remained unmoved. His arms were made agile. Now that 23 and 24, that could be talking about his life. Meaning the archers bitterly attacked him, they shot at him, they harassed him severely. Yet what did Joseph do? His bow remained unmoved. His arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one. Now, God's name is mentioned 5 times here, or a reference. By the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, by the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above. Blessing of the deep that crouches beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessing of your father are mighty beyond the blessings of my parents, up to the bounties of everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph and on the brow of him who was set apart from his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, in the morning devouring the prey, and at evening dividing the spoil. Then, verse 28, all these were the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them as he blessed them, blessing each of them and a blessing suitable to him. And then he's on his way to be gathered to his father. So going to the notes now, please. I will do this so you got a reference for it. If you look on page 5, again, it's a basic map of the tribes of Israel. And you can see where they go. And I will point out on this map a couple things that you can see. One, remember Reuben's the oldest that's going to be disinherited. You know where his tribe is at. His tribe is going to be right where, when they first get to, Moses is where Reuben's tribe is at. He's on the east side, across from the Dead Sea, across the Jordan River, and that's where he stays, and then everybody else moves on. Reuben is going to lose that land very quickly. And basically, if they're going to survive, they're going to have to move over into Israel and live in just cities around. And Reuben's tribe is not going to really be there. Levi and Simeon also do not get a land. So Simeon is, and in Joshua's notes right here, Simeon is given, and there's a list, I've got it in the notes here, a list of cities that they're allowed to live in the land of Judah. So Simeon doesn't get any land of their own, but you can have this city and about, 1,500 feet outside the wall. Here's the city. You get 1,500 feet here, or 500 yards, 500 yards here, 500 yards here, and 500 yards there for your pasturing your animals. But all their cities are in the land of Judah. So Simeon is going to disappear. Something likely would have happened to Levi also, but you know what happens to Levi? When Moses comes down the mountain and there's the golden calf and the people are having some kind of huge orgy worship service with the golden calf, and Moses says, "Who's on the Lord's side?" And Levi brings their swords and says, "We are." He says, "Start striking down people until we get this thing on." And they just start slaughtering. I mean, they're Pete Hegseth going after the Israelites. They're just slaughtering, their boats being blown up and people being slaughtered until everybody calms down. And because Levi was the tribe that stood up with Moses and the Lord, they have no property, but they're given service in the tabernacle, and then they're going to be given cities throughout the land, the Levitical cities, similar to this that Simeon had, but they're throughout the land. So they in a sense were disinherited, but then were brought back and giving something, you could say even better. They're given the Levitical service in the tabernacle. So that's where they're going to go. You can see everybody else is there. I point out you've got land of Manasseh. That's Joseph's oldest son on both sides. See the territory? And right below Manasseh is Ephraim, right above Benjamin and Dan, or right above Jerusalem. And that's where Shechem and Sychar and those places are at. But on both sides, that's a lot of land. And then notice Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, and Naphtali. Just as you know, Jesus comes from the tribe of Judah, but he's going to grow up in the tribe of Zebulun. That's where he's at. And again, just so you see where those are at, we're going to refer to those as we go. All right, that's one thing I wanted you to see. Page 9's got that chart. Oh, just so you see this, page 10 is the tabernacle. And this is where the tribes, it says right in the text of Scripture, where the tribes camped. So when they would move it, they were moving thousands of people through the wilderness and then into the promised land. This is where they camped. Right by Moses and Aaron and the high priest, or the priest, Judah camped with that tribe there. And again, I've got them in a nice square camp organization. The Romans had nice square camps with rock walls. You can see them at Masada, looking down at Masada. You can still see the Roman square walls of where their camps were inside so they could have protection. So just assuming, and that's the number of the people from the camp of Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun all added together. And then you've got Dan, Asher, and Naphtali going up that direction. And then Reuben, Simeon, and Gad on that direction. And then on the top, behind the Ark of the Covenant, you've got Benjamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim. So there you've got Benjamin and Joseph's two tribes. You see that? So Rachel's sons are on the top by the Ark of the Covenant, Benjamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim. And if you do the numbers, the largest group is the camp of Judah, 186,000 on the right side by the altar. On the top is the smallest group, Ephraim, with 108,000. And then the two equal ones are 151,000 and 157,000. So when you flew over this, in the wilderness, it was a moving cross in the wilderness, or it was every time they came. I don't know if that's the truth. Now, I'm not sure if that was the purpose. But that's just interesting. So that's where they were camping. Then on the next page, you've got two genealogies that you're familiar with. And there you've got the top one is coming down to Levi, one of the sons. And then he branches off into three sons, Gershom, Kohath, Merari. And, that's how they continue. Eventually, Kohath becomes the high priest. Everyone else becomes a Levite. And then, of course, you got Jesus' genealogy, and we got Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, and then from Perez all the way down to David, then splitting into Solomon and his other son Nathan, and that's where you get the genealogy of Jesus. So all of this is going somewhere. Now let's go, please, to page 2 of the notes, and I want to read through you some of the details of these prophecies. Again, Reuben, It starts off very positive. He uses the word preeminent in the English Standard Version. You are my firstborn, meaning you have the double portion. You are my firstborn. My might and my firstfruits of my strength. And he says preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. You have the dignity, you have the power. But you're unstable as water. You shall not have preeminence. Although it's been handed to you on a silver platter, you're so unstable, you spilt it. You lost it. You're unstable. Why? What did you do? Now again, remember, Jacob is 147 years old. Reuben, what is he? He's right there. He's 67. Sometime, I don't know, when he was 40 or something. So possibly, 80, 90, 100 years ago, Reuben did this. I mean, Jacob, haven't you guys sat down and had a conversation about this? I mean, he's been with you this whole time. I mean, he went to Egypt with you. You went and got food. I mean, all these things they've been doing together. They traveled in the promised land together. And you wait until this moment right here and go, I'm going to tell you what I really think. It's like, well, Dad, I thought you forgot about that. I've been waiting for this moment. You're preeminent, but you're unstable, so you have no preeminence. In fact, you have nothing. Nothing. It's like, what? And why? And then he says it twice. He mentions father's bed, my couch. I mean, of all those words, he mentions his bed and his couch and what happened on there 2 times. Unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence. Why? Because of one thing. You went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Just like, he went up to my couch. That's why. We're done here. Okay. And I mean, that's just, I don't know, that's shocking. Which again, it's going to reflect, it's like, but at least his family has a chance to recover. No, they have no land. They're the first tribe to just be dissolved and lose their property and have to just live in cities around Israel. No, nothing. Then he goes to his next 2 sons. And again, these first 6 are all Leah's sons. And Leah has the first 4, and then Bilhah has a couple, Zilpah has a couple, and then Leah has a couple more. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. Now again, weapons of violence, the word violence is the word Hamas. That's not self-defense, that's not war, that's not the righteous sword of the Lord. That's Hamas. That's evil violence. That's destructive violence. I mean, it'd be a great name for a terrorist group. And that is the 4th generation. I figured this out when I was teaching back in the 90s. Teach about the 4 generations. That is the 4th generation is violent. Now, it doesn't mean, well, they have a military. It means, no, they have unjust violence. They're not fighting a just war. It's selfish. It's what they want. It's vengeance. It's not the righteous anger of God. It's wicked violence for selfish reasons. It's just destroying cultures. And so he says right here, weapons of Hamas are their swords. Now, they've all got a sword. Jacob is even proud of some of the land he won because he had a battle against up in Shechem, and he won it with his sword. He's going to give that to Joseph. So these guys aren't afraid of using swords, but you use swords in a righteous way. These 2 guys, no, they made a covenant, they made a treaty, then they lied, and then they used their swords to violate their covenant. And they used the sign of the Abrahamic covenant of circumcision as a means to get the people to violate, or that they weren't going to violate later. So he says, let my soul come not into their counsel. Now, is he talking about 2 things here? Let my soul come not into their counsel. He's talking about himself. Oh, my glory. Now, what's his glory? His name, his reputation? Or is his glory the one who's led him through all these years? Is it God? Oh, my glory, oh, my God, be not joined to their company. In other words, Joseph, he uses God's name or characters of God, 5 references to God in a quick sequence talking to Joseph, because this person that I can describe in 5 ways that's been with me, he's going to be with you and you're going to be bountiful. Then right here, let my soul not be into their counsel. Oh, my glory, God, be not joined to nothing. as far as God and you, nothing. You're out. Even God's not even interested in you. I mean, he said, what he says is, "Oh, my glory, be not joined to their company." And what's he referring to? If he's talking about God, do not go into their camp. Let them survive on their own. And then, of course, I've got written down there, they are both dispersed, deprived of identifying land boundaries. Simeon is eventually assigned, here's that verse out of Joshua 19, 1 through 9. I've got it written down for you. I mean, this is their land. I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but it's pretty sad. The second lot, in the book of Joshua, it says, the second lot came out for Simeon. For the tribe of the people of Simeon, according to their clans and their inheritance, was in the midst of the inheritance of the people of Judah. So they didn't get their own land. You're going to have some cities, some villages in the land of Judah. And they had for their inheritance, and then it names all the cities of the tribes that they're going to be able to live in Judah. So eventually they're just going to lose their identification and just melt right into Judah, and it'd be like being from Somalia and moving into Minneapolis, and pretty soon you become Minnesotans and wearing Viking hats. You just assimilate their culture. That's what's going to happen to Simeon. Then number 6, Levi was given the cities throughout the land, but then again, no territory, and that's their inheritance with the tribe. Okay, now, why is that taking place? He says why it did. For in their anger they killed men, and in their willfulness they hamstrung oxen. Now again, this is not recorded in the story going back to the Genesis account of Genesis 34, but what it means is this is an example of Hamas. It's stupid violence. They not just killed innocent people that had made a treaty with them through the process of circumcision. They didn't just attack them on the weakest day of the process. Then the animals at least steal the animals, at least take the animals. But no, we're just going to disable all the animals. So all of the expensive oxen that can pull carts and do labor and grind grain, it's like they're all worthless. You can feed them, but they can't work anymore. They hamstrung the oxen. You didn't even, your Hamas, your violence was so ridiculous, you didn't even steal the stuff. You just destroyed it, so no one else could use it. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Now notice right here, I will divide them in, and this is where we get into prophecy. See, this is Jacob talking. He went up onto my bed. You did this. I'm not going to be part of your counsel. But now all of a sudden it says right here, he had just said, "Oh, my glory, be not joined in their company," possibly in verse 6 addressing God. Now right here, does God speak through him prophetically? I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Now Jacob can't do that. He's not even here in Joshua 23 dividing up the land. He can just pronounce it. So when it says, I will divide them up into Jacob and scatter them in Israel, Jacob's not going to do that. Who's going to do that? The Lord. He's the one that's going to scatter them throughout the land. And so that's, again, I think a divine message right there. All right, so that's the first 3. Now we come to Judah, chapter 49, verse 8, page 4. Judah. Now he's taken out 1, 2, 3. The first Reuben should have been the leader. Simeon and Levi were next in line, but they're full of Hamas. So now we now come to Judah. And Judah in his lifetime has shown to have some character. Judah, he says, your brothers shall praise you. And this right here, I think saying that right there is giving him the position of the firstborn, the ruler, the leader of the tribes. Your brothers shall praise you, and your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you, just like a king. So there's going to be several references here, and you can't miss this. There's several references here to king. One, the first thing we see is the other brothers, which means all the tribes, are bowing down to him. Your sons shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. So now we've talked of now he's a lion. And a lion is a symbol of royalty in Egypt at that time. The Pharaoh was portrayed as a lion. And you can see that throughout the ancient cultures, but that was the culture at that time. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as a lioness, who dares rouse him? Now what's unique about this is the lion is portrayed as a mighty warrior, the mighty hunter. He's on the prowl, he's out attacking. But this lion is, notice, he's stooped down. He's crouched as a lion. Like what? Like a lioness. Like he's already done the hunt. He's already won the battle. He's already eaten the food. He's over here sleeping. Now, that's the lion. He's totally at peace. Don't rouse him. So in other words, this lion is not a vicious, roaring lion. He's a resting lion who is at peace. But everybody has enough sense, you don't mess with the lion. So it's not a dangerous lion. It's a peaceful lion. But no one messes with that peaceful lion, because if that lion gets riled up, it's not going to be pretty. And so that's how that lion is described, which is unique. That's the second thing. And then it very clearly says, the scepter shall... Now this is one of those complicated verses that we could spend a couple weeks giving you all the Hebrew and look at all the different interpretations. This wraps itself around, this verse, what they've got right here, captures the essence of it. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. And again, the scepter is, that's the king's scepter. And this verse right here, when you talk about it and you hear anybody say the Lion of the tribe of Judah, this is the source. Now it pops up all over, everywhere, T-shirts, banners, names of churches, Christian rock bands. But this is where it comes from, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And now it says, the scepter that the king hands off to the next king shall not depart from Judah. There's not going to be another king from another tribe. It's going to stay with Judah. Nor the ruler's staff from between his feet. And you can see sometimes you got pictures of kings. Like here's a pharaoh sitting here. You don't have it in that picture. But like an Assyrian king, they'll be sitting on the throne, but they've got the scepter. That's the short scepter, but then they got the staff that's between their legs that they're holding there. So the staff, the scepter, will not depart from him, or from Judah, or from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the people. And tribute comes from conquered people. When people bring in their taxes, or this nation's been conquered, they bring in their tribute to him, and the obedience of the peoples. In other words, the scepter's not going to leave Judah until tribute starts coming into this king from the nations, and all of the nations. That's the word peoples. It doesn't say tribes. It doesn't say his brothers. It says peoples, which is the word that means the nations. It means the Gentiles. The world is obedient to this tribe, this king. Now again, we're building. Now again, understand, prophecy is always building. It begins with the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head, but his heel will be bruised. It's like, okay, so you're going to solve the problem. Yes, I'm going to solve the problem. The seed of the woman is going to solve the problem, but there's going to be some damage in the process. Now, Adam and Eve can believe that. That's their message of salvation. That's their John 3:16. The seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head, but his heel will be bruised in the process. Do you believe that? Yes, we believe. Well, righteousness. Now, what about the cross? They don't know about the cross. What about Jesus? They don't know about Jesus. They just know the seed of the woman is going to do this. Then there's going to be the promise of the seed of Abraham. And I've got it written down here, the seed of Abraham. And it's going to be, this will go to your seed. And Paul interprets that because that seed of Abraham is singular in the Hebrew. Paul brings this up in Galatians. I got it right down here, Galatians chapter 3. In Abraham 12:7, it's referred to as the seed of Abraham. And Paul explains it in chapter 3, verse 16 of Galatians. It's not plural. It's not the seeds of Abraham. It's the seed. It's singular. It's one person. That whole thing, Abraham was told by God, your seed. And Abraham believed God, and God says, that's righteous. Credit is righteousness. So what does he know? Well, he's got the seed of the woman, the seed that of Abraham, and well, what about, the crown of thorns? I don't know anything about the crown of thorns. What about faith in Christ for the salvation and the forgiveness of sins? It's like, what about baptism? We just know about the seed of the woman and the seed of Abraham, and they believed the promise of what they understood. And so this is now a little bit more. What they're being told, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Okay, he's going to be the leader of the tribes, nor his ruler's staff from between his feet. All right, so he's going to be the ruler. Yes, but he's going to hang on to that rulership of Israel until tribute starts coming into him from the nations, and the obedience of the people is obeyed to or given to this king. In other words, whoa. So this king is going to rule all the nations. He's going to be sitting on the throne. And all the people. Now watch this line right here, verse 11. So now they know that it's the seed of the woman. It's the seed singular of Abraham. It's the Lion of the tribe of Judah who's going to become the king. But he's eventually going to subdue all the nations. And again, they're thinking David is doing it. Then Solomon does it, and Solomon becomes tremendously prosperous, and that's right in line with this prophecy. All that gold and wealth of Solomon. How rich was Solomon? So rich. How rich? Well, this rich right here. And this makes sense. Binding his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vines. So what does that mean? Okay, you ever had trouble with rabbits in your garden? Or you ever had trouble with, we've planted some. I'm trying to think of a good example. But you all got an example. You plant something and the rabbits come and eat it. And then you put wire cages around your garden and you spray it with stuff, or you build a greenhouse to keep the animals out or whatever. This guy right here, they ride into town, they ride into their farm, they ride back home with their colt or their donkey. And where do they tie it up at? Just tie it up there on the vines. Yeah, well, that's one of the choice vines. Doesn't matter. But he's going to eat the vine. Who cares? I mean, look, it's like you can't eat all this stuff. You eat the garden. We got garden everywhere. It's like, where are you going to tie him? Well, should we tie him up away from the vine? You can't tie him up anywhere because everywhere you put him, there's a vine. There's crops, there's grapes, there's vegetables, there's fruit everywhere. So what's going to happen when they become obedient? It's like there'll be so much wealth, binding the foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. And then he washed his garments in wine and his vestures in the blood of grapes. Now this may be a continuation of how prosperous it's going to be. They don't use water to clean laundry. They use wine. I mean, it's like wine. Well, that's expensive. Yeah, but it sure smells good when it gets done. It's like, well, but there's so much wine. There's so many grapes. So that could be part of the prosperity, but it's also the purple, the blue, the red of royalty. Now, in the 1700s, I want to say 1700s or 1600s, I've got it written in the notes. There's the murex snail. You've heard this, right? The murex snail from Phoenicia, Tyre, that grows there along the shore. And what they found out is they can take that snail and they can crush it, and it gives off this purple blood, purple substance. And then they dip the clothes in it, and it's very rare because you got to squish all these snails. But it becomes so expensive that it became the clothes of royalty, the purple garments, because of the murex snail. And I've got it written down here somewhere. In the 1670, in Crete was the first time it's recorded. I want to tell you, 1600 BC. It's recorded first in 1600 BC, the murex snail being used to make purple garments in Crete in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, you understand where we're at? 1859. They're not going to start using the murex snail for purple garments until then. That means even at this time, they were using other substances like wine, grapes, to get that purple color for royalty. Egypt did it. Phoenicia, Mesopotamians did it. So the point right here, the next thing here, besides saying the bow, the lion, the scepter, the purple color, dyeing his clothes, this is going to be the king. And then it says, his eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk, meaning that's sign of health. The dark eyes, the white teeth, they're healthy. Meaning this is going to be a great time with this king when he comes. Now, when we talk about the wealth, David and Solomon, you can see that's being fulfilled. And so you can see how the people of Judah, of Solomon's day, realize this is the fulfillment of the promise. But then Solomon and David were both told, no, there's someone else coming. So the seed of the woman, the seed, was that Seth? The seed of Abraham, is that Isaac? Is now the Judah, the king? It's like, well, then comes David and Solomon. It's like, this gets getting pushed further and further down the road because all this is talking about, eventually, about Jesus. Okay. That last point on page 4. The illustration of the Lion of Judah here is a less active, non-threatening, presenting the image of a quiet, established power at rest and something no one wants to arouse. And that's going to be Jesus' kingdom. He's not going to be a kingdom of violence. It's going to be a kingdom that was established on war, and now that he's at rest, it's like, who wants to rouse his lion? It's like, no one. Just live at peace. So there's several references to royalty right there. Next, chapter 49, verse 13. Zebulun shall dwell on the shore of the sea. He shall become a haven for ships, and his brother and his border shall be to Sidon. Now, the reason I've got the map right here by Zebulun is this is a good proof that this was not something that was portrayed back into Genesis from the days of Joshua or the monarchy, because you notice where Zebulun's boundaries is at. This is the boundaries given to him by Joshua. The boundaries are, he's landlocked. He's in the middle. He's between Asher and Manasseh. You can see he's right there in the middle. Now, what does this mean? Shall dwell at the shore of the sea. Well, there, he doesn't, and he never did. So now we've got either false, the scripture's not true, or it proves that this was a legitimate document from 1886 or 1859, because otherwise you would have gave him a little bit of a border on the shore there, so the prophecy is fulfilled. So right there is the intention. Now what this could mean, again, that's a fact. There it is. Zebulun never possessed land on the Mediterranean coast according to history, according to records, or according to scripture. Zebulun's land was landlocked and 65 miles south of Sidon. So remember, he's going to be, his border shall be to Sidon. But his border, you see where Tyre's at? That's the border of Sidon, Tyre up there. He's 65 miles away from where his border's supposed to be. So it indicates an early writing, but it also is possible to that at some point Zebulun did without us having a record, and especially point C, or the word translated dwell, could refer to temporary dwelling. I'm not trying to twist the scriptures. He will dwell, meaning you're going to have your land, you're going to have your cities, you're going to have your houses, and they had houses. They were in tents in the wilderness, but they moved into houses. We've seen them. They've been excavated. Homes built out of stone, lined with wood, with ceilings and roofs and decorated. But the dwelling, that can mean a temporary dwelling, like over to the coast for trade, or over to the coast for ships, or even to a tent. So possibly that their land was there, but they had added dwellings up there. So nonetheless, that's what that means. That's Zebulun. Next, Issachar is a strong donkey. And you can see where Issachar is very close to where Zebulun was. Crouching between the sheepfolds, he saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant, so he bowed his shoulder to bear and became a servant of forced labor. So it appears right here, the lying down can symbolize, lying down under the struggle of working, or he finds the sheepfolds of the Canaanites, that they're already established, there's already a culture, and they move in. It's kind of like, well, hey, this is pretty easy. Some people are just wired that way. I just want to clock in. Just, clock in, I get off in 8 hours and clock out. And Issachar is like, yeah, Canaanites they've got a nice land, they got sheepfolds, we'll just work here. And so they saw that it was pleasant, the economy was solid, and that he bowed his shoulder to bear, worked along with the Canaanites, and became a servant at forced labor. And he was fine with that. Now, a guy like Joseph would be, yeah, I'm not fine with this. I'm going to rise to power. Or Judah is kind of like, no, we're going to fight our way out of this. But Issachar is like, why struggle? I mean, it can't get much easier than clocking in, clocking out. You want fries with that? It's like, that's a pretty easy job. It's like, well, it's not much of a job. I have no problems. It's like, except they wanted another package of salt. And I've worked drive-thru. I worked for a long time at drive-thru down in Tulsa. I can tell you stories. Okay. Chapter 49, verse 16. Dan shall judge. Now, this is interesting. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan is judging the people. Okay, now are you talking about the period of judges, like, Samson or somebody? Dan shall be a serpent in the way. Okay, now serpent, that puts a picture in your mind. We've had serpents before in Bible stories. A viper by the path. And that viper by the path would be as you're going down the road, going down the trail. There's a viper coiled up there kind of in the dust and the leaves and the soil. And as the horse goes by, the viper thinks you just got too close, jumps out and, snatches at the viper by the path that bites the horse's heels so that the rider falls backward. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. So Dan is going to become a judge. Now, point one, here is judge of Israel, but yet merely one of the tribes. So who's supposed to be ruling? Judah. So now this person's judging. Are they out of position? This could be translated judge his people, rule his people, or take vengeance on his people. But Dan is going to start judging his people, but there's already a king. There's already been established. Is he out of line? And by stepping out of line, he becomes a serpent in the way. A serpent that will startle someone and knock them off their horse. And that's talking about the other tribes. And then Jacob prays, I wait for your salvation, O Lord. And what do you do with that? Many people will take this, and I'm open to the idea. Again, these are predictions. These are prophecies. These are obscure. They're from 1859. But this could be the Antichrist coming from the tribe of Dan in that final battle. Before the final king comes and establishes peace, this guy's going to rise up and try and judge and establish their own precedent, and is going to cause the riders on the horse to fall backwards and get confused. And then some connect this to the Antichrist or the false prophet or one of the villains of eschatology. And especially when Jacob stops and prays afterwards, I'm waiting for your salvation. It's exactly what Israel will be praying during that time of wrath. It's really what the whole world will be praying. We've got to face this viper. It's prophesied. The seals are going to be broken, and this viper is going to appear, if this is the viper or not. And the prayer is going to be, can you shorten these days? It's like these days will not be shortened. Then we wait for your salvation. So that's it. Again, that's not a slam dunk, but it's there. Chapter 49, verse 19. Here's that six words in Hebrew. Raiders shall raid Gad, but he shall raid at their heels. So Gad is going to be invaded, but he's going to invade at their heels. Now Gad, if you go back to that map and see, Gad is directly on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. So anyone that came down that King's Highway, directly to the east of the Sea of Galilee and the Jordan River. So anyone who came down the east side of the Jordan, down the King's Highway, and came into the Jezreel Valley to invade, they had to go through the land of Gad to get to the Jordan River. And so they will be raided, but they'll strike right back. And I've got it all underlined there so you can see that 4 of these 6 Hebrew words are a play on Gad's name. And I've got it underlined in Hebrew in the transliteration, Gad, Ged, Gud. And then in the Hebrew, it's the Gamma and the Dalet with the symbols underneath there. And so Gad, troop, tramp, and triumph are all words from the word Gad. Asher's food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal delicacies. And if you look at his land right there, Asher's land, it's right there. I'm looking at it right there in that picture. From the Mount Carmel, you're looking right down to the Jezreel Valley, and the land extends up the northern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and that's going to be, again, farmland. It's farmland today, and it's going to be what serves the king's table. Naphtali, Naphtali is a doe let loose that bears beautiful fawns. This land was parallel with the land of Asher, included the land west of and northwest of the Sea of Galilee. So if you drive, and it's very fertile up there, Beautiful fawns is obscure. We don't know what that means, if that's translated right. Some translation ideas are beautiful words or goodly boughs. I mean, you want to say, well, the gospel's going to be preached up in Galilee. It's like, yeah, that's a stretch. You thought Dan is the Antichrist tribe, then the beautiful fawns let loose is the gospel let loose in Galilee. You can stretch it if you want to. If I can stretch Dan to be the Antichrist, you can stretch that to be. So again, that's again a good sign that this is original 1859. It meant something. Jacob said it, and it meant something to him. 2025, Galen reading it on a Tuesday night in the basement. It's like, it's beautiful words, good boughs, or does let loose that bears beautiful fawns. The thought would be that the courier from Naphtali brings good news. And finally, Joseph here, again, I've got it written down there, underlined the 5 words for God that is being used. I explained this is the double. This is now the longest one here right at the end. This is Joseph going to be receiving the double portion. Judah gets the leadership, the royalty. Joseph gets the double portion. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. How fruitful? His branches run over the wall. They're not just growing by the wall. They grow up, fills his property, and then grow out of his property over the wall. So he's got fruit in the neighbor's yards. You ever had a neighbor with a tree and the apples fall in his yard, but they also fall in your yard? That's Joseph's bounty, is just over in everybody's yard. The archers bitterly attacked him. Now, is this talking about the future, or is this talking about his life? Just like we talked, Simeon and Levi had life experience, Reuben had life experience. What kind of man is Joseph? Well, the archers bitterly attacked him. They shot at him and harassed him severely. Yet his bow remained unmoved. His arms were made agile. He endured it, adjusted to the situation, and came out on top. And that he's now leading Egypt today. By the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. And the mighty one of Jacob is the God that Jacob serves, the one who's led Jacob through all of his troubles. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. That mighty one of Jacob is a shepherd. He's the stone. By the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you, with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that crouches beneath. And that could be a reference to water from the heavens, waters from the bounty from the ground up. This is interesting, verse 26. This is the Abrahamic covenant, potentially. The blessings of your father are mighty beyond the blessings of my parents. In other words, my blessings are with you, but they're beyond the blessings my parents had, Isaac and Rebekah, which were what? The blessing of Abraham, or the Abrahamic covenant. So from Abraham to Jacob's parents, to Jacob, Joseph's father, that's coming right to you. The Abrahamic covenant is going right straight through Joseph right here. May they be on the head of Joseph. I think he just gives him right there the Abrahamic covenant. May they be on the head of Joseph and on the brow of him who was set apart from his brothers. How was he set apart from his brothers? Persecution. He was thrown in a pit, sold into slavery. He was set apart, and look where he ended up. Again, it's almost like a type of Christ right there. So that's what's being said there. And we got one more. Again, what a way to end. And Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, devouring the prey, and at evening, dividing its spoil. Ravenous wolf, I mean, that doesn't seem positive. What seems positive is the battles in the morning. In the morning, they're devouring the prey. By evening, it's over, and they're dividing the plunder. It's like Benjamin's going to move fast. And again, that's what does that mean? Benjamin, a wolf, a ravenous wolf. He's in the morning devouring prey. Within a short period of time, they're dividing the plunder. We don't know much about Benjamin. I mean, he was always the youngest son. Does that mean he's spoiled and always got his way? I don't know. Does that mean he's the Antichrist? I don't know. Saul comes from the tribe of Benjamin. I mean, it's hard to put, like I say, that's some of these things are just, they're disconnected. Now, if I were to do this correctly, we would go read Deuteronomy 33 and see what Moses says to the people that came from Benjamin and came from Issachar 400 years later. If this is 1859, take 450 years, 400 years off that. Now you're at 1459. 1446 is when the Exodus takes place. So you take 400 years off that and read Deuteronomy 33 for an update of prophecy of these 12. And again, that would be where we would want to go next and see that. I'll pray, and we are done. And we've got, next week, we will look at the death of Jacob and probably the death of Joseph at the same time. Father, we do thank you for the chance to look into these things. We ask that the things I shared tonight would be cleaned up and polished by your Spirit, that they'd be useful. We do thank you for your word, your ever-enduring word, your infallible word. We do ask that our fallible understanding and our struggle to try and understand it with our own human minds would be blessed by your Spirit and blessed by other study of your word and by other teachers, that we may, again, be encouraged by these things and share the good news with other people and live a life of faith, just like Abraham, Moses, David. These all lived a life of faith. We also want to do the same thing at our time, understanding the things that have been revealed to us, even in a greater way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you for your time.